What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Brother Breathe. It's your boy, your host, Tate Dezay, and I'm so excited to start off the month of June, which is Men's Health Month, in the right way. We are starting with a special guest who is here to talk about their work in the community, what mental health and social and relational wellness means to them, but more importantly, to really just get to know him a lot more. He is a pioneer in many ways, but over the past 18 years, DaShawn has built a career at the powerful intersection of media, health, advocacy, and storytelling. His work has never been just about visibility. It's been about creating spaces where Black and LGBTQ plus communities are seen, supported, celebrated, and given room to thrive. From leading major initiatives at GLAAD focused on communities of color, Black queer communities, and people impacted by HIV, to founding the Mobilizing Our Brothers initiative, better known as MOBI, DaShawn has transformed vision into impact. Through MOBI, he has built a national platform rooted in wellness, professional development, cultural pride, and community-centered storytelling. His leadership has shaped campaigns, convenings, and creative spaces that amplify underrepresented voices and open doors for the next generation of Black queer leaders and creatives. So today we are honored to welcome DaShawn Usher, a strategist, storyteller, cultural curator, and a community builder whose work reminds us that representation is powerful, but transformation should be the ultimate goal. All right, so welcome, Brother DaShawn, to Brother Breathe. How are you feeling?
Thank you. I'm feeling good.
Good.
After hearing it back, you're like, wow, like
I know.
Did that.
18 years, and
yes.
you're in a day past 25.
I was gonna say starting in the womb.
Right. That's what's up. That's what's up. How's your spirit today?
It's good. It's doing good. It's feeling like recharged, re-energized, ready for next. And I think that's it's just the ever-flowing state of just being prepared for whatever the next harvest is. So
yeah. So because, you may be new to some people, so I want to kind of start off with an icebreaker so folks can get to know you a little bit more. So we're going to start off by building a DaShawn Usher starter pack.
Perfect.
Okay. So give me one song, one food, one place, and one lesson that you've learned throughout life, and then one thing that helps you breathe. So one song, one food, one place, and one lesson that has that you've learned in life, and one thing that helps you to breathe.
All right. One song that has been on repeat is Janae Yaku's Calm and Patient.
Oh, love her.
The one food, it's so Black, but it's always going to be chicken.
Okay. Fried, grilled, barbecue. What?
Probably, I preferred blackened, but in the sense of we'll go with fried. It's often fried chicken.
Okay.
You said one place?
Yeah, like one of your favorite places.
One of my favorite places is Curacao. So it's a Dutch island it's so beautiful, and it has actually so many people that look like us, which is why I like it. That you don't feel like a tourist there. And you said one
lesson that you learned in life that has stuck with you.
One lesson: never give up. That there's always there's always peaks and valleys and mountains to traverse. But I think we learn more along the way, and I don't think we are ever at a peak, and I don't think we're ever at a valley. And I think there's just, again, more to go, more to explore.
Yeah. And then what is one thing that helps you to breathe, relax?
One thing that helps me to breathe and relax, it would be my friendship groups. A lot of folks of like checking in on each other I feel like there's a season that's kind of happening right now of like people feeling alone or isolated and not connected to folks. And if you're looking at the news, it makes you feel that way.
Right.
And so I've appreciated the intentional check-ins while also checking in on folks and hearing about them. And probably, sometimes we literally will just sit on the phone breathing and like co-working together virtually per se. And we don't work at the same organizations and doing the same things, but it's just having someone else there to just connect with inside of those moments.
I love that. Another thing that we do at Brother Breathe here is finish that sentence just to kind of start off. I'll start off the sentence and you can finish it however you like. It could be funny, serious, spiritual, messy, or all of the above. So I'm going to do a few. You ready? Okay. All right. The first time I felt truly seen was
Noah's Ark.
And explain what that is for folks who may not know.
For folks that may not know,
think you're about the Bible.
Right. If you thought heated rivalry was something, Noah's Ark was our heated rivalry. So it was essentially the first Black queer show that I ever saw and felt like representation. Not just that I felt and seen it, but it was one of the first like Black queer network shows on television produced by and created by a Black gay man, Patrick Ian Polk. And so it showed me, it was weird because at that time, I don't think I knew what life could be like or what friendships could look like or relationships. And it gave you such a dynamic of culture and such a dynamic of almost honestly a roadmap as to what the possibilities models could be. So if you wanted to be the hopeless romantic, if you wanted to be the slut, if you wanted to be the counselor, if you wanted to be a professor, it's like it touched on so many different groups that I think most people saw themselves within at least one of those characters, if not a hyphenate of some of them.
Yeah, that's so good. The difference between being visible and being valued is
visibility is easy. I think folks can be seen. Value is priceless. And I think oftentimes people conflate the two, that like just because I'm visible that there's value that's there.
Right.
But yeah, I think you can be priceless, but when you start putting a price on your visibility, then that can run into the issues, because it's if people then are putting again worth, like what is your network of your visibility. So yeah, I think it's keeping to the fact that like your value is more important.
Yeah. When I hear the word brotherhood, I think of
brotherhood. I think of people. I think it's funny because me and my friends were having like a debate about is brother inclusive, right? And inclusive in the sense of when we think about like words that usually are gendered.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was in a business fraternity that was co-ed, and both like males and females were called brothers. And so it originally started as an all male fraternity. And once it became co-ed, it was, it just seemed natural to just call each other brothers. And, and no one thought anything about it. And so I don't know. I think brother also just goes back to, it reminds me of like mankind, or like just like there are certain adjectives that, again, that we attribute to gender, but it also, I think, is inclusive of folks versus it being more limited.
Yeah, that's so good. I'll talk more about that because I had that same conversation. I feel most connected to myself when
I'm sleeping. Give me a nap. And sometimes the nap isn't even like laying down. Sometimes it's just stopping. Yeah. Sometimes it's like an intentional pause, and an intentional like just shutting things down to just think or be with myself.
Absolutely. And lastly, when I imagine the future of Black men's wellness, I see
endless possibilities. Yeah, I think I don't think Black men know the power that they have when it comes to their wellness. I think oftentimes we're being like told like statistics that we're like the first or the second or the third, usually in the top 5 of all the things and all the health disparities and all these other like aspects, as opposed to how we are really empowered to like take that information and like decide what is best for our bodies, what's best for our minds, what's best for literally how we show up in community. So I think we're limitless in how we can show up for ourselves health wise.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. I first met you, I believe was it GLAAD? No, we met at the Celebration Bowl, and then I saw you at GLAAD Awards. And I would say that while you have a quiet demeanor, but you are such a kind person, right? And like once you get to talking to you, like I can sense your heart and your kindness. And I was thinking about, like when I saw you kind of moving and doing things at a GLAAD, I was like, I need to have a conversation with him. I need to bring him on Brother Breathe, because there's something very calming about you, and and even having them being in spaces where you are kind of like needed, right? You are, leading and guiding people, but to remain calm and to have a sense of like peace about you is a gift. Like you didn't have a frantic spirit,
but thank you, because it's the calmness in the storm.
That's good. So for those who are meeting you for the first time, DaShawn, beyond the titles and the awards and the wealth of experience that you have, who are you? What really moves you?
I am a Southern boy from the South Bronx.
Explain that.
Mean it, right, exactly. In the sense of I've gotten my Southern charm from New York. And it's funny because I think most people don't think New Yorkers are warm or welcoming. And like if you live in New York, you know why. And part of it is it's a defense mechanism. It's like when you grow up, it's like you're really taught like how to tune people out and just keep going about your business. But it was when I went to Tennessee when I realized I was like, I want to stretch this southernness that I got in the Bronx, but particularly of like, because there was like this Southern charm where it was like people spoke to you, people were kind, people, and even if they were rude, it was like a different type of rude, where it's interesting because I don't know. I think there's more rude people in the South than there are in New York, and you'd be surprised.
But it's tread lightly.
But you got to catch it, and I think that's the thing, right? It's the bless your hearts of it all, where you're like, like you just
nice
called me
nastiness,
a bitch. Like, you're like,
right?
I'm like, what? It's like, and so it is one of those things where I think I've been able to like blend the two, and also living in Atlanta, it has, I think it's a mentality of just still being warm for folks. So yeah.
That's so interesting. I shared with you that I lived in New York for a brief moment, and I was in the Bronx, and I will say that, coming from, because I moved from Atlanta to New York, originally from Texas, so I'm Southern through and through.
Yes.
And but it was interesting because coming from Texas to Georgia, I actually questioned my Southernness, because I was like, wait, am I Southern? Or am I just from the South of Texas? Because it's like the Southern culture is its own world, right? The sweet tea and the God bless you, and yes dear, and all these things, right? The colloquialisms and the ways that people kind of like navigate even relationships are so different. But because I've been so ingrained in like, hospitality, I was nervous about going to New York, because I was like, oh man, like these folks are going to eat me alive. They're going to know I'm new. They're going to know I'm fresh. And I got lost on the the D train. And I was like, yo, like I was looking around, and I'm at 125th, and I'm like, where do I go? And this girl who had a thick I mean, thick Puerto Rican accent. She's to my, I know you lost. And I was like, I said, she's like, where you trying to go? And I was like, I'm trying to go to Brooklyn. She's like, oh, you're on the wrong side, go on the other side. I was like, and like, she was just so kind. She was loud, but she was so nice. And so I was like, oh, people are really nice here, And so, so you have to debunk some of those stereotypes and the ways that, we've been conditioned to believe people should be a certain way in certain geographical areas.
Yeah. And I think, and it's funny because I think most people don't get to experience probably folks that grew up or are from New York, right? And so I always tell folks that I'm glad that I grew up in New York because it was a lot of culture that I was exposed to. I also tell people I never met a white person until I went to Tennessee.
Wow.
And it was because like the white people that I met were Italian and they were, Russian or Poland.
True.
Similar to like black folks that were Jamaican or Caribbean descent and Spanish folks that were Puerto Rican, Dominican, and like it was a diaspora of culture. But then I also realized when I was in Tennessee, the binaries of like race, but also realizing that racism shows up differently in New York and it's through classism. And so I was never meant to interact with white people because like in the Bronx, like you're constantly around black and brown people.
Right.
So it's a different way of how it shows up. And so, and you get to meet interesting folks though.
And you mentioned Tennessee twice. What were you there for?
School.
Oh, okay.
So I went to Middle Tennessee State
University. In Murfreesboro.
In Murfreesboro, right? Murfreesboro.
Okay, that's
it's very much a college town, but it's like right outside of Nashville. So yeah.
Okay, that's what's up. So I'm sure that was a cultural shock to a degree coming from New York to there.
It was.
Yeah. But I'm sure it helped define a little bit about how you look at community.
Yeah. No, it was because it was interesting and wild actually, because I went to Tennessee and found like Black queer community, which was even more wild when you think that you're coming from New York. And what I realized was just how queer it was, but also being able to, like you said, find community because resources wasn't abundant, spaces weren't abundant. And so a lot of folks like flocked to the one club that we could go to or the one party or one house party or the pop-up things. And so we really ended up building a lot of community around each other. And Nashville particularly like they call Nashville the anthems of the South because there's so many schools. And so you have Fish, you have TSU, you have MTSU, you have Vanderbilt, you have Belmont, and insert all these other schools. And so it's a lot of college students and like a lot of youth there that like you're able to just continue to build on like community there.
Yeah. And I love that we're talking about community because it's a great segue into MOBI and your creation of that, and just thinking about, was there something missing in community that made you say, we need to build this, or we need to build something specifically for Black men?
Yeah. So for MOBI, I remember, so I was doing a lot of like community organizing. I did some like national organizing. I was doing some local organizing with some folks in like New York, and it wasn't necessarily centered around like Black queer folks. And I was thinking about how to create community where when I would do it for like Black queer folks nationally, folks had to go back to their homes. It was one of those things where I constantly heard that like what they didn't have at home was community, that they didn't have this experience. And for me, it's also realizing that oftentimes people are grouped into community, they don't get to opt in. And so it's like, just because we're Black, we're expected to be in community. Just because we're queer, we're expected to be in community. And what does it look like if people never see community but are often grouped in communities, right? And so I was like, how do we make it tangible? How do we actually show folks that there are other folks out there? There's that like you outside of just the clubs, and nothing's wrong with clubs.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of the balls, nothing's wrong with those. But it's like, how do we get to speak to each other? And you also start to realize that like not having intentional spaces to convene is like by design. That is because white queer folks have it, right? Like, and we often have to assimilate into those structures. And so it is thinking about what does it look like when we're able to just be ourselves without having to explain, clarify, edit any of that. And so that was the thought behind MOBI, as to like building a community where people can feel seen, people can feel warm, people can feel the value of like their participation in community, and that it's something bigger than yourself.
Right. That's so key. And I think that is also important to really understand how powerful community can have on your mental and your emotional well-being, right? Because that social aspect, right, is critical to feeling like you belong somewhere, that you've seen, and that you are valued. And especially coming from spaces like, everybody's not privileged to come from the South Bronx, okay? Some of us are from little South, little rural towns, right? And, with these aspirations to move to these larger towns or cities, right? Such as in Atlanta or New York, to find community, to find like-minded people. And so I'm curious to know, with you creating MOBI, and now it's grown and evolved into so many things, but what did it take for you and perhaps your co-laborers who all were supporting you build this? What did it take to actually create a safe haven for people to feel like they can be themselves without judgment or without feeling like an outsider?
What did it take? It took a lot of listening. The funny thing is, before MOBI launched, because we started as like in response to like putting on 2 different events that were centered around the social connectivity of Black gay men. And as we looked at that, it was like, well, how do we expand beyond Black gay men? Like, there's Black queer folks, there's Black trans folks, there's Black other like people that like are in between that like also need community. And it felt like, how do we start building that? And so before we launched, we had a listening session at a local bar in New York City, and it was like a happy hour, but like, tell us, like, if we were building this, what would it look like? Like, we didn't just want to build something just to create something else that like would continue to just be in the void of things. We didn't want to start another nonprofit organization per se, because there's plenty of them out there that say they service our communities. And it's like, well, what does it look like if y'all were a part of it? What did it look like? What would you like to see? And after coming out of that, we heard like that people want personal and professional development, but they also want to have fun. And that was like, we was like, okay, well, let's take personal and professional development. Let's do MOBI Talks. And that's what that is, this series of how do we showcase what professionalism looks like in industry, so that people don't feel alone, and that people know that there's been other folks that walked inside of their path. And that professionalism is like, it runs the gamut, right? It's like, you could be a doctor and be professional. You can be a lawyer and be professional. You can be a content creator, like explicit content creator, and be professional. But it's like, what are those like sacrifices that you've made? How are you navigating through contracts? Are you getting paid like correctly? Being able to talk about that, because we often aren't in spaces where we can talk about it, but also not pass judgment on people's choices, because like, we're also the people that are subscribing, the people that are watching, the people. And so it's like, you gotta, it's understanding like those also nuances of that, like, people don't have to live in shame. And I don't think people often hear that enough. And so for the festival, it was like, well, how do we create something that rewards people for taking ownership of their health? And let's just celebrate, and let's like center Black queer people, and let's figure out like how to bring community together and do various wellness events beyond our sexual health. Because I think we're often giving those messages
right.
of like HIV and sexual health.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, we get it, we hear it, we know it. And so as opposed to just speaking to people where they're going to check out or tune out, we want to find ways to just connect with the community so that it's impactful.
Yeah, I love that, and I love that it was community buy-in, right? That there was an conversation and a listening tour, if you will, to get folks to feel like they are building this together. You know what I'm saying? And I love also that MOBI blends like culture and wellness and creativity. And you mentioned like connection as well. Yeah. Why do you think that joy and art and music and celebration are important parts of health?
Because we're the drivers of it. And so it's one of those things is I don't think we're often like attributed to like, and so when you think about your favorite pop star, there's literally likely a Black gay man behind them, whether it's their stylist, whether it's their hairstylist, whether it's their makeup artist, whether it's their choreographer, whether it's their creative director. Even just pop. It's like
gospel,
across a lot of these
right.
industries and the people that like we've come to know and love, and so we don't get the same visibility as them, but it is just one of or even notoriety, right? And so it becomes one of those things as to if we're able to let people know that like there are other people out there that exist that are behind like your faves and your faves. But we again have that power to like talk about our like health and like and what does that visibility look like, where we can stand in the light, where we can stand in community, where we can be supported, where we won't be again like shamed for whatever like your thoughts, desires, but also like what are your dreams and goals and aspirations that people can talk to you about that like you often may not have other like Black queer people talking to you about it. And so yeah, I think it creates a opportunity for people to just continue to build together.
And you mentioned earlier that you all created the initiative like MOBI Talks, right? So explain a little bit about what that series or what did that programmatic effort look like, and were there any themes or any trends that you noticed were kind of coming up specifically for Black queer men?
Yeah, so it's funny because MOBI Talks was our like Black queer version of a TED Talk. And then we realized that, okay, that's cool. And like there could be some lessons in that, but not everybody is ready to give a TED Talk. Right. But it doesn't like take away from the value of what they have to offer. And so we've done, and I think that's the thing I love about MOBI is that we stick to what we know and like work to make it better. Like we do our 2 signature events. You're going to get MOBI Talks and you're going to get MOBI Fest, and you'll get versions of it and expansions of it. But it is just one of those things. I think people are constantly trying to scale so many different things without like investing back into like what works and how do you make it better. And so we've done panels, we've done like performances, we've done all these various integrations. When COVID happened, we did a digital series. And even that was ahead before COVID started. It was so that we could reach the people in these rural towns so that they could experience MOBI Talks, because it's also meant to be small and it's meant to be intentional so that people can connect with each other. And so, I think that creates an opportunity to just bring people together, but in different ways and be able to just like keep it going for folks.
Yeah. That's so good. I love that you mentioned about like rural areas and being able to like reach out to those folks in those areas. Because you all have created programs across cities like New York, Newark, Atlanta, Birmingham, and other places. What have you noticed about Black queer men, what they're hungry for across these different communities?
Each community is different, which I love. Like I think I can't express enough that oftentimes people are like trying to group us, and we're like not a like monolith.
Exactly.
And so it becomes one of those things of like when you start to see community and you start to see people come together, it's like you said, like MOBI Talks in Birmingham will look different because it's Birmingham.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
it has to look different, right? And so depending on who's the speakers or who's the performers or like what parts we're gonna like keep, what parts we're gonna like scale up or scale down when we do it in DC or LA, it like, again, it shows up differently. And I think each community has like their niche thing. And I think working and being able to bring what we know, like to be community into these spaces, we open it up to where it's like, okay, who are the people inside of this community that we also want to center? So it's not us just coming in, setting up shop and like, it's like, see what we've done. It's like, no, these are your local heroes. These are your local like folks that like you should know. These are, and you should know their journey. And oftentimes there's so many people that come into these communities that take up space, that don't provide space for people to be seen and centered and loved. They just want folks to show up. And for us, we want to try to do that a little bit differently.
Right. And so you are in the thick of it when it comes to just serving, queer communities through your work with GLAAD and then also with other initiatives that you have going on. What role have you noticed that storytelling has played in your own personal healing and in the healing work that you've created in other outlets?
Yeah, I think storytelling is so pivotal in the work that we do. It's why when people come to MOBI events, like we have the photo booth and why people would get headshots and why people, because it's like, you're able to tell a story. And it's also funny because I look at people's like profiles or like whatever their pictures and you're like, oh, that was a MOBI event or that was a MOBI something. But it's funny because it's like, it tells a story without people even, and so the people that were there, that like they be like, oh, okay, I know that one, I know that, right, because like they too were there and got their headshots and got their like photos. But I think the storytelling aspect of it is important because as we're trying to build and we're trying to connect with folks, I think people can understand and see like the details of those stories and see that like, yeah, like it's okay to be awkward. It's okay to be like a little like off and like not so like put together, and that it's okay to be like, again, messy at whatever, like, but it's also understanding that like there's hope for whatever improvement looks like for you, that there's an option for success of whatever success looks like for you. And so I think it creates more of a belonging, storytelling with the work that we do.
And I love that. I absolutely love that because it also kind of goes back to the whole notion about visibility and value, right? Like you can be in the space, you can take up space, you can be there, but are you valued, right? Is your uniqueness and the particularities of who you are and the idiosyncrasy, what do you call it? Like all, exactly. Like all of those things, like, are you really valued? Like, is your voice really valued? Is your talent and your identity? And so, cause like you said, we're not a monolith. We're not all the same, right?
Yeah.
But we all come with stored stories, right?
Yes.
And battles that we have won and battles that we are currently in, right? And so having these spaces like this, I think is just so valuable, but it's so like needed, especially in this time where, folks are isolated and folks feel like, the world is falling apart and
they feel like they're the only one going through it.
The only one, right? But we all are in this together, you know what I'm saying? And so for the brothers out there, especially the queer brothers who might be in South Bronx or, in
South Dakota,
exactly,
there might be
Murfreesboro, Tennessee, who are watching and listening and who feels disconnected from community, what is one small step that person can take this week to reconnect socially or relationally?
Yeah, I would say just start. I think oftentimes we're in our head. And it's funny because I was in LA for an event called Zen Fest, and it was really centering like wellness, and like MOBI was there as a partner. And I walked out as a participant because I was like, oh, I also needed these sound baths
right. Yeah.
and these calming exercises and to be a little bit more in touch with my feelings also. And I think it's understanding that like it's never too late to like start. It's never too late to be connected. It's never too late to find help. It's never too late. And it's also not a weakness, right? To understand that like if you're feeling like there's community out there, then go search for it and find it and make sure, but also make sure that it's the right community for you, right? Because not everybody out there is going to like be there for you,
right.
And so it is also having that level of discernment as to like who are your people, find your tribe, but like those tribes exist, and there's also someone else out there that's searching for community, that's searching for friendship, that's searching for opportunities to like build together. So yeah, just start looking at, again, like what are those organizations, where is that alignment? I think we don't talk a lot about alignment because it is like, where are you at in this season in your life? Because that's the other thing, is that as we get older, there's going to be some friendships that like will stay. There'll be other friendships and relationships and things that will evolve and won't exist. And so it's okay. And I don't think we hear that enough, that it's okay to be at a different point in your life, because you know what that is? Growth.
Exactly. Exactly. And also you can carve out your own space, right? Like if there isn't I think Toni Morrison said it, if there is a book out there that you want to read, but it hasn't been written, then you have to write it, right? So similar to you saw a gap and you created this initiative and built it from the ground up. Same thing with Brother Breathe, right? Like we are carving out pathways for ourselves. And so there's so much. If there's a book club you want to start, if you want to start a crocheting club, you know, or whatever it is, right? Like being able to really carve out because community is essential socially for your health and for your emotional well-being, because you matter, right? And so as we wrap up, how can people follow you in any upcoming initiatives or events that people can be looking out for?
Yeah, I mean, you can stay in touch with MOBI at mobi-nyc.com, where MOBI NYC essentially across all social platforms. For myself, it's DaShawn Usher, and I'm DaShawn Usher across all platforms also. So, you know, we keep it simple so that like you can find us and search for us.
And do you have any events coming out in the summer?
Yeah, so we have MOBI Fest that will be the first weekend in June. So that's like the June 5th through 7th in New York City.
Nice.
It's a free annual wellness festival. It's our 9th year. We're super excited about it. Our MOBI Fest this year is like is centered around dancing and joy, and just literally DJs this year are the artists.
Oh, wow.
And so we're leaning into like, what does this experimental experience looks like for folks to actually show up to the club and shake your ass and dance.
Right.
And even if you don't shake your ass, just show up and just move your 2 feet.
Move
those
all of this
feet
observations. And what are you doing? Research? Why are you over here just sitting over here looking at people?
There's a lot of anthropologists out there, but it's like, just dance.
Engage.
Is what we want
let
folks
loose.
To do.
Yeah.
And then we'll be working on our summit, Brother to Brother, that we'll be doing here in Atlanta, actually, in August. And so more to come, but that's centered around like, what does intergenerational conversations look like? And what does that look like for Black queer men?
I love that. Well, there's so much to do. There's so much work to do, but you all know that you are not alone. And so there's so much work that MOBI is putting into to ensure that there's community that's been built and that there are spaces for you to feel valued, but also spaces that you can let loose and dance and sweat, but also find your tribe, find your people, because they are out there and they're waiting for you. And so thank you so much, DaShawn, for your gift, for your light. And I appreciate you so much. And so I won't be at the MOBI Fest because I have another event to go to, but I will look up your event in August. I would love to be a part. And so again, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button so we can show and share so many of the different advocates and leaders and healers that's coming out this month. So I appreciate you all tuning in. Remember to keep breathing, keep healing, and keep becoming. Peace.